Let's just jump right in with a question that I think gets to the very heart of what we do. When your students walk out of your classroom, are they just remembering facts, or are they actually truly understanding the material? There's a huge difference between the two. So, how do we bridge that gap? Well, the key is mastering something called higher order thinking skills, or you'll hear it called HOTS for short. This is how we get our students to stop being just passive listeners and start being active thinkers and, creators. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll nail down what higher order thinking even is. Then we're going to climb the ladder, leveling up through the three big skills: analyze, evaluate, and then all the way to the top, create. And to wrap it all up, we'll get super practical with something I call the objective makeover. Sound good? Let's do it. At its core, higher order thinking is all about what students can do with what they know. It's the skill set that gets them past just, memorizing dates for a history test or definitions for a science quiz. When we focus on HOTS, we're not just teaching facts, we're building real, critical thinkers and creative problem solvers. So our first step up that ladder is analysis. This is where students stop just staring at the surface of information and really start taking it apart to see how it ticks. It's totally the foundation for all the deeper thinking that comes next. The absolute best way to think about this analyze level: think like a detective, right? A detective doesn't just glance at the facts. No way. They dig in, they scrutinize the clues, they search for patterns, and they figure out how all the little pieces connect to solve the big mystery. So what does this actually look like in a classroom? Well, it's asking students to compare two different historical accounts. It's having them classify animals based on their traits. And maybe most importantly, it's getting them to examine the relationship between, say, cause and effect. Okay, so once students can break information down, the next level up is evaluation. This is where that real critical thinking starts to fire on all cylinders. It's not enough to just understand the pieces anymore. Now we're asking them to make judgments about it. Is it valuable? Is it credible? How good is it? For this level, our new metaphor is a judge. Think about it. A judge listens to all the evidence that's been presented, that's the analysis part, and then they have to weigh it all against a set of standards or laws to come to a verdict that they can actually defend. The key skills here, they're all about making a strong case. Can a student justify their choice with solid reasons? Can they critique an argument by pointing out its strengths and weaknesses? At the end of the day, can they form and defend a judgment that holds up? And now we've made it. We have reached the summit, the absolute highest level of thinking, creation. This is the top of the mountain because it forces students to use everything they've learned, all that analysis, all that evaluation, to make something brand new. So for this level, the mindset we want is that of an inventor. An inventor takes parts and ideas that already exist, puts them together in a totally new way, and builds something that the world has never seen before. That is the ultimate application of knowledge. The verbs here are all about action, about making things. We're talking about designing a new solution, constructing a model, innovating on a process, and, of course, producing a piece of work that is truly original. Okay, that was the theory. I know. But how do we actually make this happen in our classrooms? This next part is all about turning these big ideas into a practical, everyday tool by giving our learning objectives a much-needed makeover. This little table is honestly one of the most powerful tools we have. It sorts all these action verbs by the kind of thinking they require. And just notice the difference, right? Asking a student to list something, that's pure memorization. But asking them to justify or design or critique it, that's a completely different level of thinking. The verb you choose changes everything. So this is really the key point. We can completely transform how much our students have to think just by changing the way we write the objective. Let me show you a really clear example. Look at this. The before is a simple recall task. List the events. But the after, whoa, it's a whole different world. Now students have to first analyze all the events, then evaluate them to decide which are the most pivotal, and finally create a new product that justifies their choices. You see the massive difference? And you can do this yourself, I promise, in just 3 easy steps. First, just look at your current objective and identify what level it's at. Is it just asking for kids to remember something? Second, go back to that verb table and select a more powerful verb from the analyze, evaluate, or create columns. And finally, just reframe the whole task around that new, better verb. It's really that simple. And that's really the main goal here.
The big takeaway is that after this, you can feel totally confident that you can spot a low-level task from a mile away and know exactly how to transform it into a rich, challenging learning experience for your students.
So I'm going to leave you with this one last thought to chew on. Forget about what your students can list or what they can define. Instead, ask yourself this. Based on what they're learning right now, what is one meaningful thing your students could actually create tomorrow? Because the answer to that question, well, that's where true understanding begins.